What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name's Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show, the March Madness edition. Hope that your day is going absolutely fantastic. So far, it's been a very exciting March Madness tournament as now we move past the Sweet 16 round into the Elite 8 round. We're getting very close to the Final Four and eventually being able to crown a national champion in the national championship game. So today, we're going to be going through the Elite 8 matchups. I'll be breaking them all down. And I'll also be giving you my picks for each matchup. So the way that we're going to do this is we're just going to go in order of the way that the games are going to be played. So the first game that's going to be played on Monday, all the way to the fourth and final game that's going to be played on Tuesday. So anyways, let's get right into it. The first game that we're going to see tomorrow on Monday is going to be the Houston Cougars versus the Oregon State Beavers. Now we'll start with the Houston Cougars, who come off a very, very nice win against Syracuse. And in my opinion, Syracuse was probably the hottest team in terms of shooting the basketball. They just had a ton of momentum, obviously, really, really well coached coming into that game against Houston. And I also really underestimated how good Houston was. They were coming off sort of a bad game against Rutgers. But when you really look at Houston statistically in terms of adjusted offense and adjusted defense, it's really Gonzaga and Baylor 1 and 2. And it's really Houston, number 3, in terms of teams on both sides of the ball. Houston is a very talented team. And particularly in that game against Syracuse, not only was their defense fantastic, but they were very solid offensively. They started off the game really well, ended the first half really well, and were very, very good in the second half. This is a very dangerous team. Houston is led, obviously, by 2 guards, Quentin Grimes, Marcus Sasser. Quentin Grimes in the regular season averaged 18 points per game, but you're talking about 3 double-digit scores on this team, a total average of 77.6 points per game, and again, really, really solid defensively and really solid on both sides of the basketball. On the flip side of this matchup, of course, you have the Oregon State Beavers, who are coming off a very good win against Loyola Chicago, but really good wins against Oklahoma State and Tennessee as well. So, this is a team that's playing really good basketball after being a bid stealer in the Pac-12. But you look at Oregon State, Ethan Thompson, Jared Lucas, 2 really solid guards. They're not a great offensive team by any means, but they are a pretty solid defensive team. And we saw that against Loyola Chicago, ended up beating, Cameron Krutwig, who's been really solid. And Loyola Chicago looked really sort of stifled offensively. They couldn't do anything. And obviously Loyola Chicago isn't a great offensive team either. But I underestimated Oregon State last week because Loyola Chicago was a better rated team in terms of offense. That being said, though, when you look at this matchup as a whole, I expect this to be right around a double-digit spread. Oregon State has been in this spot, obviously being the underdog all tournament long throughout this entire postseason. Houston just looked too good against a very good Syracuse team, was coming off a win against West Virginia. So I will be taking Houston in this matchup. Next up, we got a very good one. It's Baylor versus Arkansas. Obviously, Baylor coming off some pretty good wins, including one against Villanova after they beat Wisconsin. And Baylor, great team on both sides of the basketball, led by Jared Butler, Maceo Teague, Davion Mitchell. This is a great, great team. They're good defensively, and what I really liked about them in that second half of that Villanova game is that they really locked in defensively, and we haven't seen Baylor that good defensively since they took the long break after they got hit by the virus. And they sort of lost that really defensive intensity, but we saw it again in the second half against Villanova. This is going to be a very challenging game for Arkansas, a team who's been down by double digits quite a bit in the season and towards the end of the season. And I don't think they'll be able to do that against Baylor and the defense if they go down by double digits as well. That being said, Arkansas is obviously one of the best offensive teams in the country. They play with one of the fastest tempos. They're very good shooting team, especially inside, led by Moses Moody, one of the most talented guards in the country, 17 points per game. They have 4 double-digit scores and score 82.5 points per game. But again, Baylor brought the defensive intensity in the second half. And as I was saying before, Arkansas, I think, have been trailing by double digits in 6 of their past 7 wins. Can't do that against Baylor, and I think Baylor's too good. So for that reason, I will be taking Baylor in this matchup. Next up, we got the Michigan Wolverines versus the very surprising UCLA Bruins, who came off a very nice win against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, Michigan also had a very impressive win over Florida State, obviously without Isaiah Livers as well, their star player over there, who really is the backbone of their offense and defense. But they're looking just fine without him. Now, obviously, a very talented team against UCLA in this game, but I do think Michigan, still comes into this game as favorites, and really rightfully so, led by Hunter Dickinson, Franz Wagner, Eli Brooks. Mike Smith has been very good. Shawnee Brown coming off the bench. This is a team who can play defense without fouling and still level up the defensive intensity, and I expect this one to be a really defensive matchup. But I think, Michigan, they can shoot the three ball. They got to the free throw line really well against Florida State. And if they do that again against UCLA, I think they're causing a lot of problems for the Bruins. That being said, UCLA is obviously coming off not only a great win against Alabama, but after they had to play in the play-in game against Michigan State, they stepped up their defensive intensity. Their coach got really mad, called their defense really soft, and ever since that, 62 points against BYU, 47 against Abilene Christian. This is a very solid defensive team as of late. They're also led offensively by Juzang. You got Chris Smith. You got Hackez over there. You got 6 double-digit scores. This is a very good scoring team out of a Pac-12 conference that has been sensational so far in this March Madness, only averaging 72.8 points per game, but definitely the firepower to score on you offensively, and obviously we've seen the defense as of late, and beating an Alabama team that is very similar to Michigan in terms of being able to play on both sides of the basketball. That being said, I think Alabama had the better matchup against Michigan than UCLA has against Michigan. I think Michigan is a better two-way team than Alabama is, even though Alabama was one of the favorites coming into this tournament. I think UCLA's played too many games in too many days, and because they're only getting 1 day of rest here, I really like Michigan to come out really quickly and sort of put those clamps on like we saw at parts in not only the Florida State game, but we've seen it sort of really all season long. Periodically, Michigan really put the clamps on and go through massive runs. I'm worried about UCLA in terms of fatigue-wise, so I'm taking the Michigan Wolverines here. Now, this last game is not fully done. It's going to be the Gonzaga Bulldogs in the last game on Tuesday. We're not totally sure yet if it's going to be Oregon or if it's going to be USC. But we look at Gonzaga, you're talking about 4 double-digit scores and a really good scoring team overall. They score 92.1 points per game. They're the best team in the country in terms of adjusted offense. Corey Kispert, Drew Timme, Jalen Suggs. You got Ayayi there as well. Obviously, Nemhard, the transfer. This is a fantastic scoring team, but they're also pretty good in terms of defense. They're a top 10 team in the country in defensive efficiency as well. The thing that I really like about Gonzaga is it's really hard to score at their pace. And obviously they're undefeated for a reason. But Oklahoma and Creighton both came out of the gates in their game absolutely firing and scoring a ton. But Gonzaga always seems to have the lead. Gonzaga always seems to either match how quickly you're scoring or score better, and they can do it over the course of the entire 40 minutes. That's really hard for opponents to do, and we've seen that from both Oklahoma and Creighton so far, and teams like BYU over the course of the entire season. Now, on the flip side, again, we don't know for sure yet at the time of me filming this video who's actually going to officially be playing in this game, so we're going to go over both teams. Now, I think USC has the better matchup against Gonzaga. They were, a team that I looked at potentially beating Gonzaga coming into this tournament, because I think they match up kind of well against them. You got a lot of bigger guys in terms of size, and obviously you got the best player on the court. Even though Gonzaga is an extremely talented team, you have Jalen Suggs, who's probably going like number 5 in the NBA draft. Evan Mobley is the best player on this court. So not only does USC have size, not only do they have the best player on the court, but I think, they do match up Gonzaga fairly decently. That being said, only averaging 74.8 points per game. I don't really know if they can keep up with the scoring numbers of Gonzaga, because even though USC has height, we know Gonzaga is still scoring the basketball, because they don't just do it through Drew Timme. They do it through so many different guys and a lot of guards in there as well. Now, when you look at USC, you got the Mobleys, you got Isaiah White, you got a ton of different guys. But because of the way that they play defense in terms of, more blocks per game, force more turnovers per game, I'm pretty sure, and just because of Evan Mobley, I think they match up better than Oregon. Now, that being said, Oregon, led by Chris Duarte, obviously 17 points per game. They also got 5 double-digit scores per game. Also coming out of the Pac-12, they had a fantastic regular season in the Pac-12. But in terms of blocks and inside and interior defense, they don't match up against Timmy very well. They don't match up against Gonzaga as well as USC does. They can score the basketball. I just don't think that anybody can score as well against Gonzaga. So I don't think either of these two teams win. I think it's Gonzaga going to the Final Four, but I think USC would be quite an interesting matchup that I would definitely be paying attention to on Tuesday night. But anyways, guys, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs for more March Madness content for the rest of the Elite Eight, Final Four, and until the National Championship. Also, let me know your thoughts and predictions on the Elite Eight games down in the comment section below. But again, if you guys did make it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you again next time.